p68, last but not least, the case where we're dealing with two sample means, but they're independent of one another. All right, so it's not a match pair situation. Match pairs, like on the previous video, we identify those with before and after situations, so pre and post, just one individual with multiple measurements being taken. All right, but independent samples, we have different groupings of individuals being compared against one another. But you'll see a lot of similarity here. The only difference in the entire process, aside from the assumptions, which are almost the same except for the before and after part, it's just what we put in the calculator. All right. This is going to feel a lot like the two population proportion test. So the question would be, well, how do I avoid getting the two confused for one another? The answer is, well, I'll say it's simple. Look for the word mean. If the word mean is in there, if you have two samples and the word mean is in there, then it's the two sample t-test. If the word mean is not in there, then it's the other one, the two population proportion test or two prob z test. All right, so this is an old school question, but I still like it because it reminds me of how things used to be. Great Buy in Circuit Town, so that is a highlighter. It's not my first time making that mistake. Great Buy and Circuit Town. Both claim they offer the best prices. A sample of 50 randomly selected items from the inventory of Great Buy was collected. The mean cost of the items, it's a sample mean because it's of these 50 particular items, is $97.50 with a standard deviation of $17.19. A selection of 32 items from the inventory of Circuit Town was sampled, and the mean and standard deviation were 76.59 und 12.63 respectively. 0.05 on the alpha, and we want to test the claim that there's no significant difference. All right, so no significant difference means that they're equal to one another. Now, they don't tell us anything about the alternative, but we needed an alternative to make the calculator work. Again, two sample t-test. All right, so at this point, we would say, okay, well, if there is no significant difference, that's the null. What's the opposite of that? That there is some kind of significant difference. What's the difference? More than, less than? Well, I don't know. So it could be more or less. More or less is not equal. It's kind of like when I'm saying this, I'm saying it the way a person would say it in real life. Like more or less. Like, let's say you have a name that has an interesting pronunciation. And then a person, I do this all the time when I'm teaching. I mean, I try the 17 different ways I think to pronounce somebody's name, screw it up 17 times. And then eventually I'll settle on one pronunciation and I'll say, is that right? And the person will say, more or less, which is permission to keep calling them that. But I know I don't have it perfectly correct, but I've said it close enough that it's acceptable. All right. So it's not equal, but I don't know in which direction, am I overemphasizing a vowel or underemphasizing a vowel? I don't know. All right. So that kind of more or less, but that's what the opposite of no significant difference would mean. All right. So I'm going to conduct this test, stat, test, two sample t-test. Be careful. There's one that says two sample z-test. We don't want that one. Two sample t. We're working with stats because they didn't give us a raw list of data. They only gave us summary statistics, and it is tailor-made for what we have. So 97.5, Light FM. Assuming it wants to let me type information in, with this is disheartening. There we are. 17, 19, 50. Get it in the right order. Take your time. Use the force. Easter egg. 32. Oh, look at me. I used the wrong test. That's how easy it is to get the wrong test. 2samp t int. I don't want that. I want 2samp t test. Stat, test. Let's find the right one. Option 4 is the one we want. So I'm going to go over to stats. 90s. I'm going to get it to work because I seem to be having an issue with this. It's weird. I got to click out of the field and back into it in order for it to... I have to use this aftermarket kind of app to display on my iPad because Texas Instruments doesn't make one for devices like this because they don't want to put themselves out of business because they like still charging people over $100 for calculators that they made 25 or 30 years ago. So anyway, so not equal. We're always going to select pooled as no. All right. The reason behind that is a pooled t-test assumes that both samples came from populations that have the same standard deviation or similar or close enough standard deviations to one another. I don't know how the populations are distributed for the Great Buy and the Circuit Town, so I can't make that assumption. So if you're ever in doubt, we select no for pooled because, I mean, I don't know what like the store brand, you know, I compare like Stop and Shop and, you know, pick another store. It doesn't matter, but you can go with like, let's say ShopRite. Stop and Shop has their like Nature's Promise brand. And then you have ShopRite, which has whatever their brand is. You know, like, how do I know that they're manufactured by the same people? I don't. Sam's Club against Costco, you know, the same general idea. So we leave it as pooled unless we have a really good reason to think that they're coming from the same population, which we don't. All right. So for our purposes, that means just leave pooled on no and just don't change it. All right. This is the not equal symbol. So I'm going to hit calculate. I'm going to grab my p-value here, which is 1.386 times 10 to the negative 8. So I'll just write e negative 8 for space. A little tip, if you get a p-value and it has a whole number in front of a decimal sign, it's definitely in scientific notation. Look for that scientific notation because p stands for probability. Probabilities have to be between 0 and 1. All right. So if you write something like 1.386 here without the e negative 8, you're wrong because it cannot possibly be a probability. So the p-value, very small, is less than alpha. So there is sufficient evidence to reject the claim that the population mean, well, cost, price, we'll say cost, because that's what they said, is equal between Great Buy and Circuit Town at the 0.05 level. Therefore, the claim, now, they're asking whether there is a significant difference. Well, there was no claim of a significant difference. There was a claim that there was no significant difference. All right, so we don't even need this second sentence. We've already answered the question. All right, it's equal. That means that there is no significant difference. I mean, if you want, you put it in parentheses next to it. No significant difference. But this is one of the rare situations where the second sentence, the true-false sentence at the end, is not required because that addresses the alternative hypothesis, and the alternative hypothesis is irrelevant here, right? Because we already addressed it. All right. Now, when I say no significant difference, I'm talking about the equality part. So actually, let me adjust that slightly, just for clarity's sake. I don't want to confuse people too much, any more than I normally do. I'll write shows a significant difference. All right, because we're rejecting the fact that they're equal at the 0.05 level. All right, if we were saying they're equal at the 0.05 level, then we would say that the null was not true. And you know, like, things tend to spiral out of control pretty quickly and easily on my watch. So let me go ahead and put that equal sign, the check mark, where it belongs. We're rejecting the null hypothesis, and we're going with the alternative. All right. Everything's looking pretty much back to normal here, I think. All right. And there it is. So actually, we're going to end the course here. That's page 68. So the rest of the pages, you can look online on my old answer keys for solutions to that. But we're actually going to, and I have videos posted online also, but we're not going to actually cover that because of, a world pandemic. Just little things in life that tend to get in the way of being able to complete a statistics curriculum. So after this, you